So we did talk a couple of times about app signing keys being compromised throughout the year, and really kind of talked a little bit about what happens if we find some bigger application vendors that are maybe compromised and have been able to spread applications in these stores. Well, we found just that, and a couple weeks back, at the beginning of December, Tika Nagis from the Security Incident Response Team reported on This Week in Security about, I guess, what would be maybe the worst possible thing: one of the OEM vendors being compromised for the Google App Store. Now, it turned out to be much more than just one. The one name that he put out there was a pretty big one, and that was Samsung. Now, when I did the digging into this, reading the article and trying to do a little bit more research on it, it turns out that a number of different vendors were also part of this find. And I should say that hats off to Google Android security teams. I think it's Lucas, and I'm going to destroy this one, Cheversky, I believe, and Lucas, if I've mispronounced it, please correct me. I'm happy to take correction. But some of the other vendors that were on that list were LG, MediaTek, as far as heavy hitters, and also one that you may not know, which is, oh my gosh, my autocorrect went to Sirocco on that, but it is not. It's Sirocco, Czroco. And it's funny, as a Volkswagen fan, I do enjoy my Siroccos as well. But Sirocco, which, if you don't know them, they make the Walmart One tablets, and as you can imagine, that's something that is fairly widespread out there on the planet. So, what are the implications of this? Right, this means that any OEM software from any of those vendors can be injected with malware if somebody has that signing key. So they can essentially upload new software into the store, and it will be in Samsung's repository or LG's portion of the store. So if anyone who is not up to date on the latest version of Android is going to be out of luck and could have software which has been compromised. Now, where this story gets even stranger is, and this is why I selected this one as sort of a culmination of some of the other things that we've spoken about. Labs has brought quite a bit of documentation through the Sensor Intel series about kind of back in time sort of attacks that have caught my eye as well. Well, this one's not that far back in time, but 6 years is how long ago Google has found infected portions of software from these OEM vendors. So 2016 is when Samsung apparently was exposed. So we have had 6 years of Samsung Android apps which have had malware. And what does this mean? Well, malware from an OEM vendor is a little bit different than malware from a software vendor. If you're unfamiliar, a software vendor is going to be not able to gain as much on your end user device because it is kept in check by system controls. Now, with an OEM vendor, you have a little bit of room. This isn't like a rootkit on a computer, a system, but it gives you privileges that allow you to change certain elements in the system configurations. So anyone who's got these keys is able to do things like screen record an Android machine, and you would never know the difference. You're just using your OEM Samsung application or version of Android. So to me, this is the one that I think, even though it's right at the end of the year, I feel almost like an American football prognosticator talking about, like this is kind of my, I guess my sort of high risk bet, I guess, as far as the level of importance of this one. But for me, it was the most important one to me, only because it brought so many of the different elements that I've talked about with you guys for the past 5 months and now 6 months to light for me.
It really kind of just brings to mind that really old, like almost cliched saying now in security, which is the only secure system is one that's turned off or is never accessed by a human. I mean, there are just so many ways that devices can be compromised. The amount of content we put, personal content, corporate content on mobile devices is insane. It's everything. We have everything on these devices. We saw in the US recently, TikTok's now banned, albeit only on government issued devices, I think, or for members of Congress. I don't understand the full implications. But clearly, you're kind of seeing various risks of these mobile phones. And I mean, clearly, Congress people shouldn't be using personal devices or maybe having TikTok on corporate devices or government issued devices. But the fact remains, there are just so many different ways in which these systems can be compromised. And once they are, it's everything up for grabs, from passwords to intellectual property, everything. It's really quite scary.
Yeah, that supply chain problem is such a hard nut to crack. It's, code signing, right, that's the be all and end all of whether or not what you're about to install is legitimate or not. And right now, I guess we're lucky in so much as the bad actor has to steal those keys, most likely, right? But if we circle back to the quantum cryptography from earlier, they soon-ish might not have to steal those keys. They could just forge them.